Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Wild the Dome TV. Today, man, I have a very, very special episode, and my guests, you have seen them before, Slank and Sunny Ture. The new album, Nation Time 3, has just dropped. One of the best albums of the year so far, man, and we'll get into that. We're also going to get into just ideas of Black nationalism, what inspired this album, and also just some of what Black nationalism is, the ideology, the history, and the tradition. And so it's going to be a combination of a celebration of the music and an actual education lesson on how we see Black nationalism, the history of Black nationalism, people such as Garvey, Amiri, Baraka, and so on. But Sunny Ture, Slank, man, I appreciate y'all for coming through.
Yes, sir, brother Rakeem. Thank you for having us, man. Happy to be
Oh,
back. Yeah, thank you for checking
absolutely.
out the album as well. Thank you.
Definitely, yeah. No, I appreciate you having us on again. And
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, man, like this, um, the album is amazing. It's constant rotation. It's one of my favorite albums of the year. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely the perfect combination of beats, rhymes, substance. It sounds dope. It's thoughtful, and the people are gonna love it, man. So before we get started, everybody, y'all can get this album on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Tidal, all of the DSPs. It's Slank and Sunny Ture, Nation Time Volume 3. So make sure y'all cop that, man. It's such a dope album. But and so I wanted to get into some, Black nationalism topics, just so people who are uh, about to, approach this album and listen to this album can kind of have an understanding on, you know, what nation time, the history of even the phrase means, right? And so, for those who don't know, how would you guys explain what Black nationalism is?
yeah, no, I mean, I would say nationalism is like the coming together of your ethnic group, your nationality, whatever, for to like build a positive society. There is different types of nationalism. So like QEP Newton used to make the distinction between revolutionary nationalism and
Cultural nationalism. Yeah.
cultural nationalism. But even beyond that, I would say that there's different nationalisms in the nationalisms of oppressed people versus the nationalisms of like an oppressor group. So like white
Mm.
nationalism is obviously distinct from black nationalism. One being a nationalism, white nationalism that's trying to promote the supremacy of an oppressor group over everybody else, whereas black nationalism is really about coming up from under oppression, building self-determination, and having sovereignty, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, listen,
Indeed.
what he
Yeah, I think Slank hit a lot of good parts on the head. I would just add on like I see Black nationalism. It's a wide umbrella,
Mhm.
wider than we think. I mean, just like Black Power, even though we as revolutionaries might emphasize the more leftist, the more revolutionary aspects, there was, Black capitalists operating during Black Power. So in the same way, Black nationalism is the wide range of attempts to leverage our collective identity for
Mm.
different political ends. You know what I'm saying?
Indeed.
So yeah. So I mean, Garvey had his brand of nationalism, and and I think that's the one that I favor the most as it tracked through people like Malcolm and Louise Little, Malcolm X, and so on and so forth. Because as we know, Malcolm X's parents was Garveyites.
Garveyites, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing that y'all both mentioned is um, Black nationalism. It's really a wide umbrella for different types of ideas, uh, different types of ideas of what it means to be a um, nation within a nation, to the point where we seek out land for our historically we sought out land from the U.S. government, um, I think when people study these ideologies, whether it's Black nationalism, whether it's Pan Africanism, I don't want people to think sometimes that there aren't different forms of these ideologies that make up, that are under this one umbrella, right? Like all Black nationalism doesn't look the same, just like all Pan Africanism doesn't look the same. And I think that was an important part of what y'all just stated. And you mentioned Garvey. He emphasized self-reliance, race first, economic independence. I even just yesterday, I had a back and forth with one of the members of those crazy nativist groups who, they diss people like Kwame Ture and Marcus Garvey due to the fact that they aren't quote unquote African American, right? Um, but when we look at Marcus Garvey overall, how do you think his message resonates today?
I think that's a great question. I think that's might be the most important question we need to be asking. What utility does Black nationalism need to have for us today?
Mm,
How can Black nationalism be used to affect our condition, and seek solution today? So when I think about Garvey, and when I say it how that nationalism tracked through Malcolm X and so forth. Garvey and economic independence is so important. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what even now sets Garvey's nationalism, real. It sets it at odds with different ideologies. I'll leave it at that. We need to
mm,
be focused on what made Marcus Garvey, Amy Jacquees Garvey, and the UNIA so successful at reaching African Americans. Why was their program of economic self-sufficiency so why did it work so successfully with the masses?
mhm.
That's the question we got to ask, because and that's what I think we need to get back to. So I'll leave it for Slank.
No, I definitely agree. Yeah, there's a reason it was so appealing and why it was like the biggest Black movement to that time, if not of all time, in the U.S. Was the UNIA, and why the America was the number one spot for it too. Like the biggest chapters was in Louisiana had the most chapters. New York had the
Mm,
biggest chapter, like 35,000 members at the New York chapter. He would give meetings and 5,000 people would come out in Harlem. So like, and the reason it was so successful among us here is a distinction I've seen Tony Martin make in one of his books on Garvey was that the movement was most successful in places where oppression were most pronounced. So
mm,
like the U.S., I think Cuba and Panama, where a lot of West Indian, Caribbean workers were being oppressed at like dock workers and things like that. And then also South Africa was a big hub of the UNIA. So like, and the message was, like you said, race first, self-reliance, and nationhood.
mm,
So those are all things that resonate with Black people in the U.S. back then and still today. And the biggest things we can take from it is just the race first concept. And it wasn't blind, just like loyalty to anybody Black, because right now we got a lot of Black people in high places that aren't keeping our best interest in mind. And Garvey's race first meant not just, celebrating them for being Black, but also making sure the people that you're upholding, whether it's politicians or it's people, they're looking out for the best interests of the Black community as at large. And and yeah, at the time it was a movement that also spoke a lot to the Black working class because they had a lot of interaction with unions in America and Trinidad, uh, and just organizing workers around, you know, where Black workers were treated differently than the white workers because of the way racism works. So we got to unite around race, around self-reliance, doing things for ourselves because, things aren't going to, basically allies aren't, reaching out to help us like that. We got to basically reach out among the different ethnicities of Black people or nationalities of Black people throughout the world. And I think that's a big part of his message too, is just like he was a Jamaican, but he was in America making huge moves. He lived in
mm,
Panama. He was in Costa Rica. Like he was really about uniting Black people wherever they were. And another main focus was land. That was one of the things that they weren't able to do, was get a nation base, because they was really trying to set up a provisional government with the UNIA, and they wanted, a spot in Liberia maybe or somewhere like that. But even people within the Black community in Liberia and the ruling class and stuff wasn't trying to have that. So yeah, it's also about the importance of land being that fundamental piece that's going to make everything really, yeah.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
I think that Garvey's ideas, if presented in a robust national program by, a serious national organization, would be just as effective today as they were back then. These ideas of economic self-sufficiency. Now, I think that if Garvey's program was put forward today, how would we protect it from, or how would we defend it from critiques? Let's just keep it internal for right now, not even
Mm-hmm.
external.
Mm-hmm.
Internally, how would Garvey be opposed by Black liberals, by Black Marxists? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
of course, there are those amongst those groups that are nationalists, that are revolutionary nationalists. So there's a lot of gray area here, but we need to be very serious. What calling Garvey a calling Garvey's economic self-sufficiency program Black capitalist, does that put you in line with the Black masses?
Mm-hmm.
Even if ideologically you're correct,
Mm-hmm.
how does that put you in line or out of line with the Black masses and what they're doing, what we're ready for? You know what I'm saying? Secondly, what was Garvey in the most oppressed Black urban places that he was popular at, the UNI was popular at? What would they do with some critique talking about the myth of the Black dollar, the myth of the Black spending power? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
How is that critique worthwhile to the Black masses that are hungry right now,
Right.
fighting right now? You know what I'm saying? Want economic self-sufficiency, because we do have a sophisticated understanding how important that is to our freedom. The Black masses had that sophisticated understanding. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we gotta give as intellectuals, so we got to give the Black masses credit. Of course, we're all guerrilla intellectuals here. You know what I'm saying? So, but I got to put that out there because there's a lot of ways that Garvey is shat upon by people that mention him maybe once a year. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And call themselves Black nationalists.
Mm-hmm.
But what about your Black Power program is Black nationalist?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? If you take it back to the tradition, because electoral politics, that's not the end all be all. It can't be.
Right.
I'll
Right.
stop there.
No, you was building, man, for real. I agree 100%. Like we know that, like just speaking internally, not even mentioning the external forces that would, come in and oppose a program like Marcus Garvey and the UNIA presented to the people back in the day. We have now um, there are people, there are academics and Black studies departments all over the country who are afraid to teach about Black nationalism as a real solution to our problems. You also have the opposition of Black Marxists who see Marcus Garvey as a Black capitalist, which I disagree with because I don't feel like Garvey's intention on using capitalism as a tool was to maximize profit for himself. It was to build a nation of Black people, and the fact that it resonated with people from New York to Louisiana to California to Costa Rica to Jamaica to the Caribbean to the UK to Africa, as you mentioned, one of the biggest movements, or if not the biggest movement of African people, that we've ever had, right? And so there was definitely something that resonated with our people. I do understand you're right, though. If we presented this today's time, you have those two groups that I mentioned. You have the nativist groups that would just hang on the fact that he was a Jamaican. So it definitely would get some pushback, but even when we look at the Panthers, who were people like this Marxist Leninist group in the beginning, they will tell you themselves that they were founded upon the ideas of Black nationalism. They have written about they came in the same vein as Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X. You know what I'm saying? We know how many Black Panthers were uh, influenced heavily by Malcolm. You know what I'm saying? And so like when it comes to I definitely would see that as a conversation and a talking point that would be used as a counter to us presenting an idea like Garvey's Black nationalism. But yeah, go ahead, son.
Yeah, I'll just real quick. If Garvey's economic program was Black capitalist, it's because it represented the Black masses and the politics of the Black masses. You know, so if that type of economic self-sufficiency in the place that we're at within, this the changing nature of the dialectical nature of capitalism, that maybe that means there's something that that Black capitalism needs to do,
Mm,
you know, maybe for development, maybe
mm-hmm.
for that next stage, maybe us as nationalists, the Black masses, maybe there's something that needs to happen with Black capitalism and get us to that next stage. You know what I'm saying? That's what we got to interrogate. But
Right,
these blanket statements, like, no, we cast aside Garvey because he's a capitalist. Well, what are you doing with the Black masses then?
right,
You know what I'm saying? If
right.
so yeah, and of course it gets complex, you know what I'm saying, because the infusion of socialist principles in economic organizations and institutions is important, you know what I'm saying? And maybe we got to look at how much of what of that was Garvey doing. How much
Mm-hmm.
of that were Black nationalists of the past doing in their economic programs, infusing socialist African principles in there, from their own experience, you know what I'm saying? So and I'll leave it like this. I was reading Amos Wilson's book. I got it right here.
Mm-hmm.
On African centered consciousness versus the New World Order. His book on Garvey. One thing he said in there that I felt important. Garvey got to his position on economics without interfacing with Marx and these
Mm-hmm.
these important,
Yeah.
albeit important European thinkers. He got to his position on the importance and relevancy of economics to a people's identity without Marx. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'll leave it
And
there.
also, and I think a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to Garvey, that Slank mentioned a little bit earlier, is like in Costa Rica, how he went at the labor practices of the United Fruit Company. You know what I'm saying? And this stuff like that. Like he has like he got his bones uh in the quote unquote labor movement, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's not like he was somebody that was looking to exploit everyone. You know what I mean? Like
And at the time, like this, he started the UNIA in 1914. The Bolshevik Revolution hadn't even happened yet, so
right, 1917, right?
it wasn't like there was a large communist, movement, worldwide movement. Even at he predated the Bolshevik Revolution as far as
That's a
establishing his
good point.
movement. And also, it wasn't like he was against those movements. He, when Lenin passed, he gave a speech, on how Lenin was the greatest leader for the Russians of the whole ever type shit. And yeah, like you were saying, he worked with unions, and I wouldn't even call his ideology black capitalist. I would call it leaning more toward left nationalist, because when you read about how much money certain UNIA chapters or sections have, it wasn't like this individual in the UNIA became a millionaire in Detroit. It was like the UNI Detroit branch had 3 bakeries, and it was more like a collective
Hmm.
uh, endeavor where everybody in that community had a ownership in that business or in that project. And a lot of the people that were influenced by Garvey were left nationalists, like Malcolm X, anti-capitalist nationalists that still believed in, building use, even if you're, because Garvey was not just trying to build capitalism in the US system. He would, like, one thing he did that Malcolm did later, he petitioned the UN, I mean, the League of Nations, before the UN even existed, from like 1919 when it was founded all the way through the 20s, for them to turn over Germany's colonies in Africa after they lost World War I to the
Wow.
UNIA. So he wanted to have the UNIA be the official government of like Namibia, where is Germany at? Tanzania, maybe. I forget all the German colonies, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so like building factories, industry, shit like that is necessary if you're gonna run a country, if whatever the economic system is, you're gonna need those industries, those things. So like I wouldn't even categorize it as like dismissing as black nationalists, I mean black capitalists, because first of all, there wasn't even communist country when he started this whole
Right.
thing. At the time, communism was still more of a there, you know, Marx, and then there have been revolutions in the 1840s and whatnot. But as far as establishing a real socialist nation, that hadn't even happened yet. And when it did happen, it was just in its beginnings in the 20s and things. It wasn't like yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I keep put it like yeah, basically.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The Bolshevik Revolution was 3 years after the UNIA was formed. And I think that's an extremely important point. When we look at Black nationalism, and obviously you and Sunny brought up this earlier, how it's taken many forms, right? It's like kind of an umbrella term that can, mean different things depending on who we're referencing. From Garvey's UNIA to the early Panthers, Republic of New Afrika, the Nation of Islam. When we talk about Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam, when we talk about um, Black nationalism. We talk about these groups, right? The UNIA, the early Panthers, the Nation of Islam under Elijah Muhammad. It seems like in the conversation, the Black nationalism aspect of that often gets lost, where we the way that Garvey or Huey and or Elijah Muhammad, the way these movements get spoken about sometimes, for me, it just seems like the Black nationalist ideology gets lost in the conversation, and they bring up other things, right? They don't bring up these plans that they had to build a nation within a nation. Why do you think that is? Why do you think now, when we speak about these different movements, the nationhood aspect of these movements often gets lost in the conversation?
I think that's a really good question. I think there's multiple answers you could give. I'll just try to give one. We know with counterinsurgency, shout out
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Curry,
Mm-hmm.
and with counterinsurgency during the Black Power civil rights movement, uh, Black nationalism was interpreted by the feds through COINTELPRO, and also through certain counterinsurgent forces within the academy, or elsewhere in white society, like the feminist movement. You start seeing ideas that attach Black nationalism to a mimetic form of masculinity. Mimetic meaning to mimic, you know what I'm saying? Meaning black black nationalist leaders, a lot of them being men, were interpreted, and framed as being desirous of white patriarchal power.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So uh I think that has been important in the historiography, to cast Black nationalism itself as as primitive, as old, as not contemporary, as not modern enough. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? It's
Mm-hmm.
pre-postmodern. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
There's no use for it anymore. And I think that goes along very well with you know other forms of reactionary feminism, that was it the politics of I forget the term, but just desiring a high status as some type of sign of progress. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of forms of feminism that I think are attached to this kind of liberal mindset. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of
Right.
so I think liberal feminism has done its duty for white supremacy, in causing this, popular interpretation of Black nationalism as something that aggrieved Black men did, and Black women that participated were didn't have agency enough to even defend themselves from these Black men that were just using them to try to attain white patriarchal power. So I think those are the popular interpretations pushed by the academy.
Yeah.
So I'll stop there. That's one answer.
Yeah.
No, I would say, yeah, like the reason I think maybe like I agree with all that as well. And I would just add, like, I think black nationalism is dangerous, you know, like you were saying, to the powers that be that run America. So even a lot of the academics and is like liberal postmodernists, you know, just kind of, you know, some bullshit. So yeah, they de-emphasize the actual politics that are dangerous to the system and emphasize like non-issues or random stuff that's distractions basically to try to make the movement look you know, like they'll may say the Panthers were just all anti-woman or something when like I think a lot of the members were women, you know, things like that.
Right.
So yeah, just trying to a misdirection type of thing where they de-emphasize the things that are dangerous to white America that actually
Mhm.
will work for us and emphasize distractions,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I agree 100%. It's like they'll like during Black History Month, they'll promote the aesthetic with no mention of the ideology, right?
Yeah. Like Martin Luther King, like he's become a federal holiday, and like
mhm.
the White House can have a Martin Luther King celebration and invite, you know, Tiger Woods and Rod Wave or whatever, whoever can do the thing. But like, do they actually talk about Martin Luther King's anti-war politics, his anti-Vietnam stance, the fact that the Green Berets and the FBI were the ones that killed him? Nah, they ain't gonna mention none of that. They're just
Right.
gonna he was nonviolent. They picked the parts that worked for what they want to push on Black people today: stay nonviolent, turn the other cheek, you know, do a speech, say kumbaya, and it'll all be okay. But like that's not, they don't tell you that he supported you know, mass protests in the streets, that he, you know what I'm saying, said that it was the language of the unheard, or and that, you know, that he was talking about working, he was unionized, working with the garbage unions and working to open up housing in Chicago, and they don't tell you about that shit, but they'll emphasize just nonviolence. So they, yeah, it's a lot of things where Lenin said they'll like kill your leaders and then emasculate their message and give it back to you type shit.
Mm.
So that same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. We see that to this day. Um, the album, Nation Time Volume 3. Again, like I said before, this is one of my favorite albums of the year. Um, the intro has Amiri Baraka on it. And Nation Time is a reference to the classic 1972 Nation Time album from Amiri Baraka. I actually have that on vinyl. For those who haven't heard it, definitely peep that. It's a classic. Um, Nation Time. What does the phrase mean to you in today's context?
Man, that question's everything, bro. Uh, for us, it's just a reminder where we need to get back to. You know, we fallen off the path. You know,
Mm-hmm.
all that to say, because I don't want to stay on that note. All that to say, I think the potential is still there. You know, I think our message represents that, like the potential for a Black nationalist awakening, a Black cultural revolution, which I think, you know, there is utility in in cultural nationalism, because I think, you know, cultural revolution is to some degree going to precede more material changes. It's going to be we need unity. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? We need unity. We need Black nationalist unity. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? We need unity that is going to answer some of the big fundamental questions about our relationship to the US, our relationship to the rest of the world. You know, Black Lives Matter, it came about, it didn't answer none of those big questions.
Right.
It just kind of shuffled people along to, you know, assimilate. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? So yeah, when I say nation time, you know what I'm saying, it's referring to the need to get back to a real Black nationalist orientation, take it back to the basics.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Word is
saying?
bond.
Yeah, no fact. Same. I mean the same thing is what Malcolm meant, what Fanon meant, you know what I'm saying, what uh Cabral meant, you know what I'm saying? Like built like land, like yeah, like you said, with Black Lives Matter, a lot of the more liberal postmodernists post-structuralists, as this author, Dr. Ferguson, I've been reading, says, like it's just steered away from what's actually important, like uh actually changing social conditions, actually building something outside of the US, self-determination. We've gotten to this thing where it's just like protest for better conditions within the system, and then that you don't get them anyway. But we
Yeah.
need to be thinking more like nation-wise, you know what I'm saying? Like Garvey, race first, self-reliance, and nationhood. So
Mm-hmm.
the same thing as all the previous, black nationalists, left nationalists, leaders meant when they said nationhood. And that's like, really getting back to the basics and reorienting the whole outlook of where like we're taking things from like the more fit in to get in America to the more like let's do something else outside of it. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'll take let's keep taking it further. I think this is a very important question. Like, how do we use Black nationalism today? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's incredibly important. So, yeah, yeah, my bad.
No, no, you good. No, you
And, and Baraka said like art is a weapon in the struggle, in the class struggle, the struggle in general. So like that's why I think Baraka is so important, because he saw that art and culture uh, are a integral part of the struggle for self determination, the struggle for Black nationhood. But yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, go ahead.
yeah. With Nation Time, I think it's important just to make this that we say this as well. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it I think already occurring in localities all around us, in Black communities all over the nation. There's survival strategies. There's already nationalist institutions, you know, emerging from our people and our condition. You know what I'm saying? But when we say Nation Time, it's about putting the national infrastructure around all those local and state and regional institutions. You know what I'm saying? We
Mm-hmm.
need to institutionalize, the unity of all, the local, state, and regional levels. You know what I'm saying? Institutionalizing that nationally is a important next step for us. So in Nation Time, if we take it to like the political advocacy realm, we have a song there called UN,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an important song on the album for me, because it provides a call to action, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, to some extent. Let's take our grievances to the UN, to the international forum. Of course, we know Malcolm said this, so many other leaders said this. We've lost touch with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a basic. That's a basic. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm said that before he formed the program for the Organization of Afro-American Unity, which was a nationalist program.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But we got to get back to that, because and I think it's important for two reasons. I think first, it checks the Pan-Africanist box. That's important. You know what I'm saying? Because in stating our grievances in an international way, you know what I'm saying? Of course, we have a chance to state how the relationship between us and the continent in terms of imperialism, and so on and so forth. But it also checks the nationalist box. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Because imagine if all the conscious revolutionary Black nationalists now went around to their community and said, let's get on this petition, because it stresses our separate identity.
Yeah.
It stresses our national identity. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? We have a separate identity that we need to take away from the American system and take it internationally. Now, I also say on the song, even if they don't listen to us, we're gonna keep recruiting.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because the end all be all, it's not that the UN it has to be the international institution that services our grievances. Whether it is or not, it's the process of unification and increasing national identity. We need
Mm-hmm.
something that's going to work. We need
Mm-hmm.
something that is going to be able to bring people together in an easy way, maybe that for what's possible right now. You know what I'm saying? Uh, yeah, I think, even think about reparations. Our reparations claim will be stronger to the U.S. government if it was cast internationally, to the
Mm-hmm.
international community. We need the international community to put pressure on the American government to give us reparations. You think we about to just go with a handout and ask nicely, say please?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to be that is going to be part of the process of our national unification and separation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I'll end on this. That's inevitable.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm wrong. It's either we're successful in allowing our and securing and protecting our Black New African identity. You know what I'm saying? From this low point, this new nadir that we're in. You know what I'm saying? And the changes and the travesties that capitalism has and will wrought upon our communities. You know, it's either we build something strong enough to survive what's coming, or we are lost to history
Yeah. You,
as a
you,
people.
since the time of slavery, for those who like in this book, Stone Stucky Slave Culture, we had ideas of Black nationalism being a nation within a nation. And this, I think you're right, as far as um, I think you're right as far as just even looking at how our ideology of nationalism has grown over the years, right? It's not just something that is going to benefit quote unquote African Americans. As we see with Garvey, this Black nationalism is still international movement of African people. Um, One thing that Slank just mentioned was Amiri Baraka. How it's funny he said that because that was literally my next question. How he saw art as a tool for revolution. Last show that we all did together, we talked about the Black Arts Movement. When we talk about this album, Nation Time, which I told you off camera, it's not just full of substance. It's a dope album. Like just not just conceptually, but sonically, right? Like this is hip hop. You know what I'm saying? It still has to sound good, regardless to what you're saying. The album is dope, and so it checks all those boxes. But like Slank said before, and like we talked about on the last show that we did, and about the Black Arts Movement, Baraka seeing art as a tool of revolution. How do you see hip hop functioning in that role in today's time? Because it's even mentioned on the album, some of the rappers that we grew up on, who we saw as revolutionaries, are working for the state.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say mainstream hip hop is not really a tool of the revolution anymore, like at all. That's why I think Nation Time is important because we're doing something different, like trying to really bring back the consciousness into music, make art a weapon in the Black national struggle again, like it was from its inception, because it started as a Black working class form of music that was outside of the system that talked about issues that you wouldn't hear on mainstream airwaves and things like that. So like, yeah, I say nowadays the mainstream is very it's because it's controlled by people that don't look like us for the most part. Most of the record executives are white lawyer guys that from Tel Aviv and shit like that. So like they don't really represent the average experience of Black working people, and they even themselves, like Leo Cohen, admit, yeah, Leo Cohen was like, yeah, on the Breakfast Club one time, he's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I push violence and drugs and music and sign artists that promote that. I don't give a fuck. Like it makes me money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like they're all making money. So like for making money for people that aren't Black. So it's like yeah, like we don't control the mainstream music, but that's all right because Black music has never really been mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Blues was, you know what I'm saying? Like it was
Mm-hmm.
always music from the masses, and and it was always talking about real stuff. So like that's why we're just trying to get back to that with the Nation Time series, uh, doing something different. And there's a lot of underground music that talks about real stuff as well.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's relegated to the underground because when you push a certain message, you know, yeah, the powers that be don't want to have that front and
Yeah.
center.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we see the contradictions rising. You know what I'm saying? There was some white writer that said it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. You know what I'm saying? So I think we have at the top an incredible level of white control. You know what I'm saying? We'll just say white control for the purposes of YouTube. But I think on the other side, you know, we got to talk about like internally, like there's some artists that's not even real successful in the artists that's still betraying the culture, still traitors to the culture. You know,
Yeah.
traitors to their people, and
Oh yeah, you said that on the album. What would you say? It said
aiming
aiming
at
at
these
the
rappers wearing trader clothes.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
traitors
aiming
wearing
at
rapper clothes. Yeah,
vice versa.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, aiming at these traders wearing rapper clothes. You know, putting adorning yourself in the culture. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that don't mean nothing to me. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? And we got to call it out by name.
Mm.
D1, Chuck
Mm.
D,
Mm.
etc. What
Mm-hmm.
is y'all's names doing on the State Department website?
Right.
The same institution with blood on its hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same institutions for genocide. Only thing protecting the people that work for the State Department from Nuremberg type trials for war crimes is white supremacy.
Mm.
The only thing protecting the US State Department from being tried for war crimes is worldwide white supremacy. And niggas take their check from them. Niggas will gladly get take a flight and represent the State Department. I don't care if it's a subsidiary. I can't even say
Mm-hmm.
the word. I'm mad. You know what I'm saying? I don't care. What I mean, I don't care if whatever the name that you see, you don't see the U.S. State Department. But then, look, it don't matter once it's revealed to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, in some ways, God might forgive the ignorant. You know what I'm saying? But y'all not ignorant no more.
Right.
It's been revealed to you how that organization is attached, is part of, it is promoted by the State Department. I'm calling on D1, Chuck D, etc., to renounce their relationship with the U.S. State Department.
Absolutely.
That's healing the culture.
Mm-hmm.
That's healing the culture.
Mm. What you
Yeah.
think, Slank?
No, I mean it's facts, and as far as like not knowing, yeah, someone might not have known at first, they know now, and even Chuck D definitely did know. Like he was at the White House with Leor and Blinken, like, and I had a conversation with him. It didn't really go nowhere. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's like it just shows where we're at in 2025, where like that's acceptable and cool. Where like you even got legends like I think One Below from fucking the Binary Star is on this
Mm.
website. You know, people like
Yeah, yeah,
it's like
you said
crazy.
that. Right.
Like it's just crazy, like the diversity they got that's willing to like go with it. Substantial, who used to make albums with Nujabes, is on there. So it's like it's old, like underground dope rappers, and then you got like the more new ones like D1, whatever, who also portrays himself as a Christian rapper, which then that brings in another contradiction because he's always criticizing the things wrong with black music, black culture, but blaming black people and not the forces at the top controlling it. But then you're this very holy Christian who calls out shit, but then you yourself rap for the State Department during the genocide. That's very contradictory, and it just shows like the state of where we're at, where that don't get called out enough almost.
Yeah.
We cannot allow Western imperialism to put on a chain, put on a dashiki, step up to a turntable, be an MC for the night. We can't allow it. We
Mhm.
can't we can't allow these hip hop artists to give U.S. imperialism, Western imperialism a hip hop face.
And New Orleans is rocking with Trump now.
That's
Uh,
how. That's what I was going to say. And didn't like right before the inauguration, all of these hip hop artists over there, bojangling for Donald Trump.
yeah, Rick
It's
Ross and Kodak was just at the White House recently,
yeah.
Black History Month. Uh, but yeah, like, yeah, it's a joke. That's like the Black History Month figures we get at the White House. It's like Kodak. Uh, like I know FBA was probably mad about that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Tyreek getting an invitation with Kodak, the Haitian in there, they was pissed. But but yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like, yeah, there's always gonna be rappers willing to sell out, it seems like. more and more today than even back in
Hmm.
the old days. Because back in the old days, you had rappers playing in apartheid South Africa. Not rappers, my bad. You had artists and
Hmm.
musicians, things like Percy Sledge, Ray Charles, Eartha Kitt, that would go to South Africa, be honorary whites to play in the all-white casino, while the masses of Africans was living horribly under apartheid, and they was giving the same excuses that Chuck D and all them give. Oh, we got to make a living. You know, it's just
Because it was a boycott that black artists started, right? They said we're not going to perform in apartheid South Africa.
yeah. And it was linked up. It was not only black artists in America, but like South African uh, organizations like the ANC, PAC, all of them was also part of this. So they would write in their newspapers like, "We don't want y'all to come here and legitimize it. Y'all can better serve the cause by raising hell in America about them supporting South Africa's government, shit like that." But but yeah, certain artists were like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I'm gonna go get my money, be an honorary white uh at the casino and shit." But yeah, same shit as signing up for the State Department.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's wild times, man. How far we have drifted and how much control we have lost. Like, man, I just remember growing up and hearing conscious artists and seeing videos where artists not only had a message, they looked the part, you know what I'm saying? Like, and now um it's so it's like mainstream. Obviously, hip hop is rooted in capitalism, rugged individualism, and that's funny because this album, Nation Time, is so antithetical to that. It's not about individualism. It's literally about a nation, right? Nationhood, and again, I definitely appreciate this project for all that it is. When we look at Nation Time, this is the third volume. Can you tell me how y'all even came up, like just to even start this series? Like what was that? Like what was the inspiration or that conversation like?
Uh, I I think I won't say much on it. I mean, as soon as Slank and I came together, you know what I'm saying, we was immediately on that type of tip. As far as like black nationalism, like politically, we was already locked
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? So even
Mhm.
musically, we was already locked in on similar sounds. So I mean, I would say since we started, why did it become a series? I mean,
Because them
it
joints
became
is fire. Y'all just had to keep doing that, right?
but even more important, and I seriously mean this, the importance of it being nation time, us making this
Mm,
moment right now nation time is growing in importance.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, hopefully this album is something that's going to people that's already on the wavelength and make them more solid on that. You know what I'm saying? And make them even more so, locked into, you know what I'm saying, revolutionary black nationalism, they path, they deem, whatever you want to call it. And even better if it can help some people that's not there, that's maybe more wayward, don't have a certain direction. You know what I'm saying? We need to lead as many as we can towards black nationalism. We'll be okay with
yeah.
that. With black nationalist unity, we'll be okay. I think as black leftists, we have to be okay being in the room. I'm not speaking to us
Hmm.
and us three, but
Hmm.
black leftists got to be okay being with black nationalist unity, being around some niggas that they not used to being around, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Or with opinions that they not used to hearing in person. You know what I'm saying? They used to just maybe reading it in
Yeah,
critique form.
yeah.
No,
Th-
yeah, go ahead.
no, something I want to ask you, Sonny. And so, like when we look at Baraka, and you know how he kind of made a transition from nationalism to more, Marxist thinking later on. When we look at the importance of nationhood and it being nation time right now, right? Um, can you just talk about the possible tensions between Black nationalism and Black Marxism, and can they work together?
I definitely think it's possible. You know what I'm saying? I have not been as successful and seeing that, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I was at one point a member of the Malcolm X grassroots movement.
Mhm.
I was forced to resign because I'm pushing working class black national culture, you know what I'm saying? And for so many reasons, the Marxists got a problem with it and feminists got a problem with it.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And that's on record, you know what I'm saying? That so I've seen it occur where, you know, I seen those tensions close up,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Very close up. But it is possible. I think that the fear that was induced by white counterinsurgency about black nationalism and the role of black masculinity within black nationalism, we have to mature and take that on head first, you know what I'm saying? Like the black community, like I'll stop with this. There was a study on SNCC by a white feminist writer named Belinda Robnett. She
Mhm.
wrote on SNCC. She did a study, and she said SNCC was successfully able to integrate a racial frame within the organization, but but she claimed they failed to do so with gender, right?
Mhm.
But what is her evidence of this?
Mhm.
Her evidence of this is because the study was a survey of only black women in SNCC, and the black women she surveyed did not see feminism as relevant to their organization, as
Mhm.
far as, you know, feminism as they encountered it at that moment, right? What is, you
Mhm.
know, just for the sake of clarity. And you know, that's important for us to take on because, you know, the history is being interpreted and framed for us in ways that's not always true. You know what I'm saying? And black nationalism at its core is about black unity. And you know, and I don't like seeing black women in black nationalist circles being framed by ops as being, you know, without agency, as being just manipulated to do so.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you are taking away the agency of millions of black women when you do that.
Mhm. You know, when we look at SNCC and Fannie Lou Hamer, she said, I'm not trying to be liberated from my husband. You know what I'm saying? Like she was down for the cause. And a lot of times now they'll still paint her as a feminist. You know what I'm saying? And that's another way that I see a lot of people that, freedom fighters, like how Slank mentioned Dr. King, they just get rebranded these days to whatever the popular and safe ideology is of the moment.
I think, yeah, my bad. You make an important point just about you know, about feminism. Clenora Hudson Weems was an Africana womanist who is forgotten about in the literature. You know what I'm saying? And I bring this up because, you know, one way that black working class culture and black nationalism is maligned, even in so-called black radical circles, is through these, you know, these passages, these ways. You
Mm,
know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
No, and also I would just say about Baraka with like mixing black nationalism and Marxism coexist? I think Baraka is an example of how they can, because
Mm,
some of the best writings I've read on black nationalism came from when Baraka in like the early 80s, when he was more into like Maoism, I would say, uh, where he was able to define how like black nationalism and and Marxism will work together. And I think it also takes like an approach where you can't be uh some Marxists tend to be very just into the European writers, or just like
yeah.
every if Marx didn't say it himself, you know what I'm saying?
Mm,
You can't be stuck to the everything he said. Like Marxism has to be adapted. The best African examples of people that use socialism or Marxism were people that adapted it to the conditions of their country. And even non-black like Mao or somebody like that, like they adopted Marxism to the Chinese situation. They didn't just do
mm,
exactly what the Russians did, or if a
mhm,
white said it first, they didn't do it. Like uh, all throughout Africa, all the liberation movements that did embrace, socialism did it in their own ways,
yeah.
did it differently, and were often critiqued by white Marxists for doing that. And I think the tendency nowadays is a lot of black Marxists, especially in like academic circles, will take that more that like white approach to it, almost not doing it like Du Bois. Du Bois said Marxism has to be adapted as far as the Black American situation is concerned because of the difference in how it's not just about class here. Race is also a big issue. Like you can't just have it there. Like Du Bois was saying, you can't just have white and black working class unity in 1930 America because the white people won't even let you in the unions. So you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to do Marxism, you got to do it differently. And yeah,
I'll just real quick. Robert F. Williams, he was exiled to Cuba. While in Cuba, he's being pressured by the Communist Party of Cuba to get off that black nationalist shit. Yo,
Mm-hmm.
black nationalism is fucking shit up for us over here. The communists in America and the Communist Party of Cuba both were opposed to them. He only really found friends in Che Guevara and Fidel Castro. To the point where Robert F. Williams is saying, I don't want to be no Uncle Tom in the Jim Crow South, and I don't want to be no socialist Uncle Tom.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So all that to say, I agree with Slank. Marxism, if it has utility, I believe it does. It has to be stretched, or I mean, I, I don't even like. Maybe it's the visualization of stretching Marxism over the top of something that
Mm-hmm.
maybe I don't like and the masses don't like. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Marxism needs to be ground up and spread throughout where appropriate. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? It doesn't need to cover up anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, but ultimately, I agree. You know what I'm saying? That Marxism has utility, but throughout history, we've seen Marxists take aim at black nationalists, and that's the part that's not spoken about enough. We're quick to talk about where black nationalism falls short. You know what I'm saying? But what about the boys coming at Garvey, trying to get
Mm-hmm.
Garvey kicked out the country, and
Mm-hmm.
along with the NAACP, like that's a part of his legacy as well.
Yes.
That's part of the legacy of even a lot of black communists. Gerald Horne in his new book, the armed front, I
I'm
forget the
sure.
exact name of it,
Yeah.
armed struggle. He talks about black communists out there on the West Coast that were very anti-nationalist. So it's a reality, you know what I'm saying, that we're still dealing with. But I think because black nationalism doesn't really have any pull, like it doesn't have the same pull as something like Marxism, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that in today's time. I saw something interesting the other day. Slank had quote tweeted it was a communist group, I believe, in America, and they gave their reading list, and it was no black authors on the list. And then somebody was like, "Yo, man, like, where's blood in my eye?" And he was like, "Yo, who is that by?" And I'm like, "Wow, like they're so
yeah,
disconnected from our black radical traditions that they don't even find our writings or experience useful."
yeah. I think that was the ACP,
Mm.
which is the one. Influential members of it are like a dude named Jackson Hinkle and I think Hat.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So like they're known for being on some other shit. I ain't even gonna get too deep into that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, because they say he's Jackson Hinkle, they say he's an agent.
yeah, he used to like intern for Tulsi Gabbard, who's now like the director of national intelligence for the US government under Trump. But I guess I don't know how close they still are, but even back then, like he used to like go surfing with her and shit, and he's hung out with her recently. And also, they have like a brand of communism. They say that it blends MAGA with it. Like they used to be call themselves MAGA communists, but now they
What?
rebranded. So like they were pro Trump, which makes no and communists, which makes no sense. Like really,
Right.
I, I'm saying in about 20 to 30 years, we're gonna have another Neo COINTELPRO drop, and we're gonna find out that there was a memo sent to all these groups to tell them to shit on Gerald Horne.
Yeah. Oh
they
yeah,
Because
hate
because
they
what,
they
hate
what
they
bro.
they
they,
all
they
it's
shitted on
they
the
always
thread.
do it. They always
Yeah,
try to
they
do it.
always.
I think
Like
they
that.
recognize how powerful of a historian he is. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
How and shout out Dr. Gerald Horne. I met him in Indianapolis at an Asala conference. He signed my
Dope.
copy of Apocalypse. He a real one.
Yeah.
He a real one.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So shout out Dr. Gerald Horne. And
Absolutely.
what they saying about it's crazy shit. It seems like it was part of a memo they don't really understand the
Bro,
context of.
I got into it with one of them dudes online. Like they was really trying to they call themselves leftists, but they was really trying to shit on Gerald Horne. I'm like, yo,
They've
like,
been doing it for years because I got into it online one time with a couple of them years ago, and they really had a problem with this 1776 book
yeah,
because the whole thing, like I said, they want to embrace this reactionary white MAGA movement and Americanism. Yeah, that book, they hate that one. They want to embrace Americanism with whatever like pseudo left wing type of politics they're also trying to push. But that's why they don't have no black authors on their list. Because if you read any, even black, they didn't even have no black communist authors. They had 7 works by Deng, who, in my opinion, took China in a revisionist direction and whose writings don't have shit to do with American conditions at all. He's
right.
writing like 1980s, 1990s Chinese economic capitalist economics and shit. So what the fuck? Reading 7 books by Deng, you're the American Communist Party, but you ain't got no Du Bois, who wrote, like I said, about how Marxism needs to be stretched, who also wrote about how reactionary the white working class is. So they don't have no Du Bois. They ain't got no Walter Rodney because he's writing
No
about how
Theodore James.
yeah, they don't have no and they're Caribbean, but they didn't have no nothing by black communists in the US either. There was no Huey Newton,
Haywood.
no nothing. So like it's because all the if they read any black works from the US, it would shit on the US and it would dismiss their Americanism blending project and shit. And another thing, they love Herbert Aptheker's book on the revolution. Sonny brought this up, American Revolution. Because he gives a more positive light. I think it was written in like the 50s or so. I don't even know how it's old. You know what I'm saying?
What kind of how is he framing the American Revolution?
Uh not like Gerald Horne, basically.
Mm-hmm.
He's finding the most positive way to frame like you know,
Settler colonialism.
it's British tyranny, I guess, stuff like that. So
Okay.
uh kind of the same way they would frame it now. Like,
Kind
but
of a triumph of early white working class.
yeah.
Mm.
So, but they love that book by him, this
Mm.
white ACP party or whatever.
Mhm.
But they hate they're I don't know if they hate, but they're not going to mention his book on American slave revolts. That talks about the tons of racism in America, the tons of
Mhm.
efforts by black people who were enslaved in America to overthrow this racist reactionary American system during the colonies, during the revolution, after the revolution. So like it just if they were to read his bibliography in totality, what I'm saying,
Yeah.
Herbert Aptheker, the white historian, wouldn't agree with their position probably. Yeah.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. They're insane, bro. Um. As far as this album though, some of my favorite joints, Farmers and Artisans, Divine Light, UN, Funeral. Do you guys have any favorite songs from the album?
Man, I gotta give a big shout out to my boy Kevon Red for hopping on. He did the artwork for the album, but he
Yeah.
also hopped on my favorite song, "Soldiers of Love,"
Yeah. That's
and he
dope.
also, of course, did the outro for the. I mean, yeah, the hook for the outro as well. But yeah, so I think "Soldiers of Love" right now is my favorite.
Dope. Dope.
Something different for the series if y'all checking for it.
It is, it is, it is, but it still fits. It still that's one thing about this album is, um, obviously arrangement of and how the songs are. It has a flow, right? Like how albums are supposed to. It doesn't sound like a playlist. You take us on a journey of nationhood. You know what I'm saying? And definitely supremely dope. Slank, what's your favorite joint on here right now, man?
I probably have to go with Divine Light.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
beat's crazy. Like Sonny made all the beats on the album as always.
Sonny, you killed that, man. You killed that, bro.
Yeah, that beat's crazy. The message is great. You know, he wrote his verse first. So when I heard it and he was mentioning D1 and shit, I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's what we're doing on this one. Like
Yeah.
we're just gonna
Right.
go all in. So I was like, fuck it. Yeah, no, that's probably my favorite one. And that with Funeral right after it, I like listening to those two as like
Mm.
as one song type shit. I like those together. So yeah, I like those two.
Dope, 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 man. Everybody, y'all can pick this Y'all can listen to this at all streaming sites. You can also pay for this on Bandcamp, right? Um, support support the artists that are doing the real, man. The Bandcamp and all of the streaming services. The link will be in the description. Um, Nation Time 3 is out now. One of my favorite albums of the year. Sunny and Slank, man, I appreciate y'all for coming through as always. Um, I love the movement. I love the music. You know what I'm saying? And I definitely appreciate the contribution to the hip hop canon in 2025, man. Because this type of music, man, we really need it, man. Like we are a lot of things are lacking substance these days. A lot of things are lacking the ability to make your head nod and make you think simultaneously. And this does a great job of both. So I salute you both, man, for making an extremely dope album. I also salute you both for always, even outside of the music, you know what I'm saying, pushing the message. And again, thank you for all y'all do, bro.
Yeah, we got to thank you too, bro. Thank you for Wise the Dome TV. You pushing the culture, pushing the message. Also, thank you to Black Power Reloaded.
Mm.
I know you're a new co-host there. I watch regularly. You know what I'm saying? It's important. What y'all do is important. So, shout out Black Power Reloaded.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having us on as always. Dope conversations. And yeah, everybody go check out Nation Time. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody check out Nation Time, but also buy it, man. Go to Bandcamp and buy it. You know what I'm saying? That's important to show that type of love for the artist. Matter of fact, I'm about to buy it right now as soon as we get off. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate what y'all do. And until the next time, peace to my family.
Peace and Pan-Africanism, y'all.